Okay, back at the bus today. Starting to get to the end of June 20th, I think, 19th maybe. Anyway, it's Saturday, about 6 o'clock, but we're working on the bus again today. Today we're working on putting the clutch back onto the engine and then mounting the transmission back on there. I have done some work initially. Give me a second, I'm going to unbox the clutch, pull out the good stuff compared to the old, show what the failure was, and then I'll also show what I did with the pressure plate as well, just to loosen up the stress on it. It's going to be just a couple minutes, I'll unbox that and I'll show you that. Okay, I'm going to take the camera off and I'll show you all the different pieces that I've had to get so far. Okay, to start with, I know one of my first videos I showed you that I had to pull off the air intake elbow. This is the original one that I pulled off. You can see there's a nice slit in there, so we tried to tape over it. The new one is right here. Now, obviously they don't make these parts anymore. What I did do is I went to an international truck dealer that's in my area, and got the part number from one of the guys on the Scenicruiser groups, the Yahoo groups. Very nice to actually have it in stock, but what he did a couple years back is he actually talked with them, got the correct part, passed it on to me. I was very thankful for that, so it actually saved me a little bit of a hunt. So this is what the replacement will be. Now it is a little bit bigger than the old one, as you can see. This one's a little bit longer. I think this is just a hair longer too, about 3/4 of an inch. This one's more of 1.25 inches. That's too long. So I may have to trim this up, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I probably won't get to that today, but I just wanted to show you the difference in them. Next we have the pressure plate. Now I did not get a new pressure plate. This one seemed to be okay. It may not be the greatest shape, but it's not horrible either. So I just decided to use my old one. So what I did is these are 3/8 inch grade 8 bolts. Probably didn't need to get grade 8, but that's just what I got. They are coarse thread, so 3/8 coarse thread. These are 2 inches long. What these did is you screw these in all the way around the edges, and these will actually push the fingers down a little bit to relieve the pressure. So when you go to bolt on all your pressure plate bolts into the flywheel, this isn't, I mean, you don't have to torque on these super hard because you've already gotten the pressure loosened from the fingers by putting in these 6 3/8 inch bolts. So that's what I did with this. Yeah, they're all the way screwed in there. There wasn't much to show on that. You just drop them in there, screw them in, and you'll see the fingers start to move. Okay, so here's my new clutch pieces. So I got 2 new clutch discs. So there's one that's for the flywheel. This is for the engine, or excuse me, that's for the flywheel on the engine side. This is the pressure plate side. You can see as it says in the tags. And I got a new floater plate. So this sits in between the 2 clutch discs, and these notches actually sit into notches that correspond with them on the flywheel. So this and the flywheel are in a sense one, and then you get your 2 clutches, which these and the pressure plate are one with the transmission. When the pressure's put on them, they grab together, and then that's what hooks up the transmission with the engine. So this is your friction material, and these have been rebuilt, so these are brand spanking new. They look a little bit different than my old ones, but they're still the exact same thing. They'll work. The only difference they have is on my old one, this is the clutch that had a cover on it, which you can see warped. I don't know if that warped before or if it was warped just because of some of the heat. The discs themselves are still fine. The discs were not warped. Neither was any of the materials inside. Pressure plate was fine. Flywheel was fine. I did bring them, everything but the flywheel, I did also bring to a local shop as well, just to have them look at it. Now you can see it looks like I do some grooving. There's no grooves. I'm not sure why that's that, but if you feel over it, there are actually no grooves. Regardless, I did still get a new floater plate. Inside the floater plate, this is your throw-up bearing. So the inside spins, as you can kind of see in there. that sits on the transmission. The throw-up bearing is what pushes up against your fingers to release and then give pressure to the clutch discs on the engine. So it's kind of neat how it all works together. So that will have to go on. It was recommended that I get that, and that wasn't all that expensive. That was, I think, actually I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't too bad. It was under $100 for the throw-up bearing. And then everything else, I did get shipped from Luke at US Coach. I do highly recommend him. I'll put Luke's contact information below in the description of my video, but he's a fantastic resource, very knowledgeable in both GM, GMC, and MCI coaches, and he's the one I got the clutch discs from. He actually rebuilds them in store, and also the floater plate throw-up bearing I got from him as well, along with the alignment tool. Now you will be charged a core charge. Of course, you'll get that back as soon as you return the items. So this is the alignment tool as well. You can see it is grooved. These match the grooves on my transmission shaft, and also they match the grooves that are inside the clutch discs. So I will use this when I go to put everything back together to make sure that I can, when I go to put the transmission back up to the engine and bolt it in, the transmission shaft slides right in between everything. So this is also on rental from Luke at US Coach, so that will have to go back to him. He is in New Jersey. I'm in just south of Chicago, so I did have to get everything shipped. I don't remember how much shipping was either. But anyway, so that's the alignment tool. So again, here's my old stuff. Pretty bad. So the failure, I was going to say that I was going to talk about the failure. As you can see, this looks really crispy compared to the new one. Kind of kicking myself too. There's still a good amount of material left on them, as you can see in comparison to the new ones. If I didn't blow it, it probably would have been okay. But basically what it was, and I didn't know better when I first started out to drive it and checking into it, the clutch adjustment rod was not adjusted properly. It was too tight. With it being too tight, everything, basically the clutch was slipping the entire time that I was driving. In a sense, it got it really, really hot and then just blew it out when I was on the highway heading home. So I only got about 25 miles driven in the Scenicruiser. I'm looking forward to driving it again. It was a unique experience and actually real cool to do, but both of those are like that. So you can see they're really crispy. So that was the failure. My pressure plate seems to be fine, and then the flywheel as well. So here's my parts array. Also in this bin is just coolant to go back in the radiator, which I did have fixed. But for now, these are all the new parts that I have, so I should have everything I need to put this back together. The only other thing I need is power steering fluid to go into this reservoir, because a lot of it dumped out when I pulled it out. So, so that's the only other thing that I think I'll need to pick up. Otherwise, once I get everything back in, hooked up, I'll have to prime the fuel system. I still got to figure out how exactly to do so, and then I'll describe it on there too. So anyway, I'm gonna put the camera back and enjoy. I will probably move the camera too once I get everything set, just to kind of show you what I'm doing to build everything back in for the clutch and the transmission, just for my own reference, and also if there's others that want to see how it's done. Correction on the date, it's June 22nd, Saturday, June 22nd. Okay, what I'm going to do, I've got a gasket scraper. I'm going to go ahead and scrape the rest of the clutch material that you saw missing around the very edge of the old clutches out of the flywheel area. And then I'm going to just lightly sand, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but there's a little bit of surface rust on the flywheel. So I'm going to just lightly sand that off and then wipe it off. Okay, What I'm going to be using is 400 grit sandpaper, just to lightly sand that down, just really fine, just so as to not mess up the flywheel face, but just enough to get the surface rust off. That's a lot better than what it was. So I'm just going to leave it as is, and I'm going to start rebuilding it. That cleaned it up a lot. That was really quick. So just 400 grit sandpaper. Probably could have used water, but because it's rust and that came from the water, I figured I'll just do a dry. And then I wiped it down just with a regular like rag, shop cloth, whatever you got. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm assembling the clutch disc, floater plate, clutch disc, and we'll put the alignments in between them and then lift it up into the flywheel area. Hopefully this will work. That's heavy. Okay. So what I have done here, so you've got your alignment tool, here's your clutch disc, because again these look brand spanking new. You do want to make sure you get the right side on. Right now that says pressure plate side. Pressure plates is the last thing that goes on. So I have that on the correct side, and then the flip side for the flywheel side. So again, this alignment tool sits right in the middle. It's inside that, I believe it's a carry bearing. I could be wrong, that might be a different bearing, but I'm just turning this by hand and they are turning. You can see the intermediate plate, which sits in the groove on the flywheel, is not moving. So like I said, the flywheel and that floater plate are one in a sense. So friction is applied both on the flywheel and then on both sides of the floater plate along with the pressure plate side, which the pressure plate gets bolted to the flywheel. So there's 4 contact sides on the engine side, then there's 4 contact sides, which is one each of the sides on the clutch discs on the transmission side, because the transmission shaft is what slides into there. So here's the shaft on the transmission, and these do fit. I did verify that. This is that throwout bearing that I need to replace. It is probably a good idea. It doesn't, you can kind of hear it's not as greased, etc. And probably doesn't turn as easy as it should, so I'm going to throw the other one in there. But anyway, so that's kind of how that works, which is kind of neat. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pressure plate bolted on, but just kind of wanted to show you how everything works. It's on. Alright, so here's the flywheel. I've tried putting the clutch on before when I realized I needed to retap some threads. So I got a Heli-coil insert on the very bottom one right here. It's kind of blocked by the transmission. And then I rethreaded the one right next to it. So I had 2 holes right next to each other that one the bolt stripped, another one it wouldn't grab anything. Just completely hollow. There weren't even any threads in there. So got those fixed, so that should be fine for now. Everything else, when I was tightening it up, worked fine. We'll see how it works again when I go to put everything back in. Last thing I have to do to this is punch out the very end of the Heli-coil piece, and then I'm ready to put all the clutch pieces back in, get them aligned, and then try to mount the transmission again. So we'll see how it goes. 2 clutch discs, clutch alignment tool, pressure plate, and the floater plate. So I'm going to go ahead and get those aligned up in there. I also have all my bolts ready to go. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully I don't have to re-tap any other screws from the last time, but we'll find out as we go. So for this, I got all new grade 8 bolts. Mine are threaded, and I don't know if this is the norm. Mine are 3/8 fine thread, so from what I've heard, others are 3/8 coarse thread. They're 1 inch long. I did get another lock washer with them, and I did get all grade 8 bolts put this on. Now for the bigger ones, those I believe, for what holds the transmission on, those are coarse thread. But what I have is fine for this, so that's why I had to special order a Heli-coil kit. Nobody else in town carried a 3/8 fine thread, which is 24, or 3/8-24. So there's 24 threads within 1 inch. You can actually count them on this one. I didn't, but that's what it is. Coarse thread is 16, so 3/8-16. So I had to special order a Heli-coil, but that's fine. I'd rather get it done right the first time and not have more issues in the future. So we're going to see about getting this put on. Coming slowly but surely. I got 2 bolts holding it. They're not tightened down all the way, but it's okay. So I'm running into the same problem I did when I tried this before. Basically the alignment tool is stuck now because of the pressure getting put on it. So I'm having a hard time getting it out, but I know as soon as I pull it out I don't have enough pressure and the discs are going to just slide just slightly. So when I go to put the transmission in, it's not going to line up. So I need to get this just a hair bit looser, the part of the alignment tool that's stuck inside, just to make sure I can pull it out. I should actually use grease instead of just use WD-40. But once I can get it out slightly, then I'm going to finish tightening up some of the bolts around it. Then I'll pull it out completely and the transmission should slide in nice and snug exactly where it's supposed to be, so the discs don't fall slightly in between the floater plate, the flywheel, and the pressure plate. And I think it's still loose enough I can get it out with the bigger wrench. So I'm going to finish putting the bolts in around and start tightening it up. Yes, alright, looks like it's lined up right. It's going all the way into the carrier bearing in the center of the flywheel. That's good. That's really, really good. Alright, now I'm going to clean up my mess I made down here. And I'm probably going to move the camera, but next on is the transmission, so see if that goes on. Before I do that, I'm going to double check and make sure there's nothing else I have to do, so I'm going to verify with the manual. There's nothing else I have to do to make sure that I'm set with the pressure plate. I should be good with this, so it does look pretty good. I'm pretty happy about that. Even looks kind of cool on the camera. I can see the gold in the new bolts. Anyway, so just to recap what I did do, I did not replace the flywheel. I did not replace the pressure plate. I believe my failure was the lack of adjustment on the clutch discs. It was not adjusted properly on the adjustment nut that sits behind the tag axle. So I think it was part of it. I do think I had more adjustment left. I just didn't do it enough to get the clutch to kick back in again. So a little frustrated at myself for that one, for not trying it more. But it was a little hard to turn. Anyway, it was a good thing though I did replace it for how torn up my existing clutch discs were. So it's probably a good thing that I didn't mess with it more to get more adjustment out of it. Just they were crumbling. The edges were crumbling, and you probably saw that in one of my past videos. So pressure plate seemed okay. The failure was probably just the adjustment nut. Pressure plate did get a little hot, so we'll see and make sure that it's okay. If not, well, I'll pull it all out again and do it again. I hope that's not the case, but from an expert, I did have a look at the pressure plate from a local clutch rebuild transmission shop up north in Chicago. They did okay the pressure plate, so I'm okay on that. And then from pictures I sent as well about the flywheel, that was also okayed. So fingers crossed, hopefully we'll be okay. What I did do as well, one of the past weeks ago, is I did get the throwout bearing that sits on, oh, I forget what it's called, but anyway, there's a piece that sits on, and that sits on the shaft of the transmission, so down in here. I did get the old throwout bearing pressed off, and then when pressed on, it cost me 10 bucks. Fantastic. Done by a local company here called Bumper to Bumper. They sell auto parts as well, but that was fantastic. So I'm going to put that back in here, grease it up before I put the transmission in. So check the manual, put the throwout bearing in, grease it, and then that's going on. And if you are curious what it looks like, so here's the bearing. So I'm kind of in the sunlight here, but this is the new part that was pressed on. This is what sits on the shaft inside the transmission. This is where the grease fitting kind of gets connected to, but this does spin nice. The other one was actually off, so it was a really good thing I had it replaced by the guy who did it. So anyway. These are the springs that hold the throwout bearing, or I pull the throwout bearing back with the shaft, or with the with your clutch pedal. Okay, throwout bearing's on. I'm just going to grease it up, put everything back in.